In the year 2025, I released short reviews of adventure games every week on Nebula, using a complex and extremely accurate rating system I will explain shortly. This project was a collaboration with my friend Willow from the channel Questing Refuge. There's a link in the down there part to their channel. Just go over to it right now. Right-click the link, select Open a New Tab, hit subscribe, and the bell button. It's easy. 52 weeks in a year came out to an intro, 50 reviews, and a conclusion, at which point we had a definitive and mathematically provable adventure game tier list. It is now 2026, and we are releasing the totality here on YouTube. What follows is the rating system. We begin with valuations. Each game is given a base value B and an expected value E, both measured on a 10-point scale. Expected value is the hopes you came in with based on marketing, reputation, the game's opening hours, or your own proclivities. For example, we'll say you came in expecting a 5 out of 10, which we are treating as average. Base value is how good you feel the game actually is. In this case, we'll say 8 out of 10. This game has exceeded expectations by 3 points. A game's final score is absolute value A, calculated with this equation. For every point a game exceeds or falls short of expectation, we add or subtract half a point from the base value. In this case, an 8 becomes a 9.5. This is to reflect how disappointments and pleasant surprises influence one's overall aesthetic experience. For example, a game that is purported to be trash but turns out to be kind of okay may be a more enjoyable experience than a game you expect to be fine and turns out to be exactly that. By the same token, a decent game that does not live up to its potential may be less enjoyable than a mediocre game with a handful of great moments. Games are tiered according to their absolute value score, with the 10-point scale divided evenly between A, B, C, and D tiers. Due to the nature of valuations, it is possible for a game to so exceed expectations that it gets a score higher than 10. This is the only way to enter S tier. Similarly, a game falling so far below expectations that it dips into the negative is the only way to enter F tier. In some cases, you may see a game with a badge. If I am particularly sweet on a game, nostalgia perhaps, or it just pushes my very specific buttons, such that I don't think I can assess what an average person's experience or expectations might be, I will mark it with a sugar badge. If I loathe a game and suspect an average player would not be quite as incensed as I am, I will note this with a salt badge. Objectivity is a lie. Next is a game's gem score, a measure of how niche it is to adventure game fans. 1 gem should be accessible to genre newcomers. 2 gems assumes a degree of familiarity with and appreciation of adventure game logic and tropes. 3 gems, aimed at aficionados, may entail leaps of logic in narrative or design only fans will overlook, or, occasionally, clever iterations and subversions incomprehensible to the unfamiliar. Additionally, we support No Games for Genocide, link in the down there part, so we will be marking reviews of any games currently owned by Microsoft with this icon. We strongly encourage you not to purchase these games or any other Microsoft products until they divest from Israel's illegal occupation and genocide in Gaza. This mostly applies to a handful of Activision games and, sadly, several Double Fine remasters of 90s classics. To the best of our understanding, the originals of those games are still owned by LucasArts, whose parent is Disney, which is a different flavor of evil, which we are not currently boycotting. So, hope you like pixels. Free Palestine. Regarding our objectives, in addition to a definitive 50-game ranking, this project will also determine the trustworthiness of one AdventureGamers.com, about whom there will be a twist. Our underlying question, is Adventure Gamers up its own butt? And if so, how far? In Part 1, we will reassess Adventure Gamer's top 100 all-time adventure games list. As it is infeasible to re-rank all 100 games, we will be re-ranking only the top 20. We will assume any game that has made the top 20 should be at least an A rank, and if we agree, we will award Adventure Gamers 5 points. For every ranking we disagree with, we deduct 1 point for every tier between theirs and ours. Part 2. Adventure Gamer's Top 100 list was released in 2011. A lot of adventure games have come out since then. So next, we will re-rank all the best game winners from the site's Adventure Game Awards, the Aggies, from 2012 to 2022, both staff picks and reader's choice. As with Part 1, we will add 5 points each time we agree, and subtract 1 to 4 for each ranking we disagree with. However, if a winning game is both not deserving of an A rank and beat a more deserving game for best game, we will deduct a full 5 points. Exceptions will be made if the deserving game won in the opposite bracket, i.e. lost staff pick but won reader's choice or vice versa. Finally, in Part 3, we will rank every deserving game, in my empirical assessment, that neither made the top 20 nor won an Aggie. Then we tally demerits. If despite losing best game, a game won at least 3 other Aggies, we will award 5 points after all. I promise this is not excessive. Adventure Gamers hands out upwards of 32 Aggies a year between staff and readers. A game picking up 7 or more is common. If a deserving game at least made the top 50, we will forego demerits. Barring either of these conditions, we will deduct 5 points for each deserving game. If a game won only a single Aggie, and it's the Silver Aggie, we deduct 6 points. At this point, we share the final 50-game tier list and the final trustworthiness tally for AdventureGamers.com. Originally, I said whom we hope will have a good sense of humor about all this, but I can wait for it. Happy 2026, you ding-dongs! Still Life, a murder mystery where you chase a serial killer clearly modeled on Jack the Ripper. What I think you should know about Still Life is that at one point you escape a shootout by doing a water volume puzzle, specifically the one from Die Hard with a Vengeance.
What?
I think you should know that at one point you bake gingerbread cookies for your father, which is very involved and surprisingly difficult and has no relevance to the plot. I think you should know that one of the hardest puzzles ever in a video game is a 22-step lock-picking minigame that opens a random door with one clue inside. I think you should know that the game ends on a cliffhanger and the killer's identity isn't revealed until the sequel, which is about a different case. The ending is a subplot in a different game. And maybe you should know that AdventureGamers.com called this the 20th best adventure game of all time, which is 18 spots above Full Throttle. So maybe I'm a little salty. We're starting off with a game in F tier.
Oh, I see evil, evil, born deep beneath the city.
In Beneath a Steel Sky, you play an orphan raised in the Australian outback who becomes a fugitive in a decaying futuristic megacity. On first playthrough, I found it kind of annoying. Like, I don't think the puzzles or the writing are what you would call good, but reminiscing a few years down the line, I do find myself kind of soft on it, and that's mostly thanks to Joey. Joey is your AI sidekick whose consciousness you have to keep swapping in and out of different robot bodies, mostly appliances, and he's just really cranky about it. Joey's great. We love Joey. Frankly, I don't think the game would have a cult following without him. Does that make it good? No, but it's my list. And so until such time as I replay this thing and remember what it was I disliked, it goes in B tier.
How do you feel, Joey?
You're practically human.
And this feeling of insecurity is natural?
Oh, yeah.
Let's be honest. Myst has been done better than Myst in the years since Myst came out. Arguably, its spiritual successor Obduction does what Myst do with 20 years more sophistication. But friends, in the 90s, we found a book that contained an entire world and we got to go there. And that experience perfectly mirrored what it was like to pop a game into our brand new CD-ROM drive and see this when we were used to seeing this. And now that it's been done, you can do it again, cleaner, smarter. You can learn from its mistakes. But I think it can only be this distilled once. Myst remains an S-tier game, but it's still not as good as Riven. In In Machinarium, you play a cute little robot who goes into the city to rescue his cute little robot girlfriend from some cute little robot kidnappers and stop their cute little terrorist plot. Wonderful art, beautiful sound design, clever as hell nonverbal storytelling, and the longer I play, the more I feel enjoyment leaching out of my body like a fetus stealing calcium from its mother's teeth. It's like the pop-up book in a pediatrician's waiting room. It looks beautiful from the right angle. But if you break that spell, if you don't happen to like the thing directly in front of you, the box-up puzzles and the pew-pew minigames, there really is nothing else. No life, no world, just paper. I'm putting Machinarium in C. I'm sorry. Jane Jensen's game about a mystically important asshole with a case of the will they won't theys with his more competent sidekick. Sorry, I should have been more specific. I mean the voodoo one. Everything I dislike about Sierra kinda works here. Obtuse puzzles, well, everybody hates this one, but it's actually a personal favorite of mine. I solved it without hints. Cheap deaths? It does mostly find a balance where death is a threat without being frustrating, a midpoint between Space Quest and The Gribbler. Hub locations you enjoy at first but are sick of the sight of by game's end? Okay, yeah. Yeah. But it takes longer than usual this time. New Orleans! Treats the history of voodoo, colonialism, and the slave trade with an abiding respect, while still being a white European shadow chaser's quest to fight an evil West African demon, so a problematic fave that leans hard on the latter. S tier with a sugar badge. Syberia shouldn't work. Syberia doesn't work. You play an executor who needs to find a guy to sign a thing in spring-loaded, wind-up, alternate universe France. He's nowhere to be found, but there's been all this foreshadowing about people going on journeys, and there's this clockwork train that the guy designed. So you're thinking, the main character's gonna find a reason to get this train up and running, right? You know, some clue that maybe the guy is down the tracks somewhere. But no, the character never decides, nor even mentions getting the train working. Now, a seasoned player will recognize a puzzle chain when they see one, and, you know, at the end of that chain you are headed east, but there is no why. The inciting incident is just missing. I guess they trusted that if the gameplay functioned, adventure fans wouldn't care if the plot didn't. And unfortunately for you, I am an adventure fan, and I find this kind of ineptitude charming. B tier, I will not be taking questions. Ron Gilbert wrote a manifesto called Why Adventure Games Suck, enumerating the genre's many failings and the corrections he proposed. Players shouldn't learn crucial information in cutscenes that the character isn't present for. Puzzle dependencies should make sure players can't miss important inventory and get stuck. It should be impossible to die because death discourages exploration. Gilbert was himself guilty of many of these sins, but the secret of Monkey Island was him putting his money where his mouth be. A simple story about a cabin boy who wants to be a pirate. It didn't fly off the shelves, but every adventure designer took note, and for decades, these rules were the doctrine. People talk about the Citizen Kane of video games. This was adventure gaming's velvet underground. I have loved it since I was 6.
Long ago, in the castle of a kingdom called Daventry,
Prince Alexander seeks reunion with his love, the Princess Cassima, in the kingdom she calls her home. Her land of the Green Isles blends fabulism from Grimm, Carroll, Homer, and Scheherazade. It is lyrical, beautiful, quite literally enchanting for precisely as long as it feels expansive. For as long as you can ask, what's just over yonder? But as is so common to Sierra, once you've explored as far as the map will take you, reached its many walls and locked gates, the glamour falters. Characters run out of things to say, noble quests just become lists of chores, dramatic tensions give way to petty annoyances. It is never less than lovely, and were you to play with an open walkthrough or childhood memories of how to proceed, it would be magical. But played as intended, it cannot live up to its opening hours. King's Quest VI goes in B tier, my first true heresy.
Propaganda on parade.
The puns run mighty sweet and meta, friend, but if you stick with it, you might make some weird, fond memories. Like all vintage adventure games, the puzzle logic is idiosyncratic, which means not only are you bombarded with silly jokes, you're making them. You acquire a cute little collection of magic spells at a nice pace with satisfying enough application and inversion by the end, but my nostalgia for ZGI is all about place and tone. Myst, for all its beauty, filled me with lonely dread. Ugh. The Underground, however, is cozy, primed for a post-pandemic comeback, and though not as bustling with on-screen characters as a LucasArts title, evades desolation by packing goofy characterization into puzzle objects and set dressing, like my boy Dean Martin, but literal house. You do have some very choice, very putting on a school play FMV with Erica Very, gamely silver medaling Tim Curry for Best Game Dictator, and a baffled Dirk Benedict as Walmart's Starbucks/Indiana Jones if those men were also a weenie and a fraud. But the Michael McKean accompanying me on cheerful dungeon ambles is everything. Sarcastic but neither smug nor acid, his helpful, comforting, omnipresent MC patter at His Girl Friday speeds will always be top-tier game voiceover to me. They say you can't do comedy in games, but I dare say you can if you go full I don't give a Zork.
I'll just call you ageless, faceless, gender-neutral, culturally ambiguous adventure person. Afghan cop, for short.
Is there another game from the 90s that scores so high across all criteria of what we might call the perfect adventure? A game that offers so many puzzle solutions it has 3 distinct second acts, that introduces Sophia Hapgood, the only Jones girl to rival Marion, that serves up a Mayan temple, the Algerian desert, the streets of Monte Carlo, and the labyrinth of Crete, that takes as much joy in archaeology as it does in throwing sucker punches. Is there a property better suited to deliver on all of this than Indiana Jones, or a better studio to design it than LucasArts at their peak? But it's nobody's favorite. It's as good as you'd expect, a bit better, in fact. But the genre's true masterpieces are flawed, imperfect games with a somethingness that Fate of Atlantis lacks. It is no masterpiece. It's just a whip-cracking good time. This is not an adventure game.
Tex Murphy, the Pandora Directive is everything I could want in an FMV adventure game. Over 10 days, you'll track down a missing man, catch a killer, antagonize the NSA, discover alien technologies, and even get into a love triangle. Great lead performances give the game some gravitas, while the occasional over-the-top side character is good for a laugh. But this is not just an interactive movie. You freely explore 3D environments and can ask anyone about anything. You can play Tex as good-natured and goofy, or cynical and opportunistic. Your actions and words change the path of the game and lead to multiple endings, which range from disastrous to horny. And there are so many puzzles: inventory combining, assembly, code cracking, puzzles involving calendars, maps, spatial skills, and math. Conversational puzzles challenge you to say the right things to progress or even stay alive. There are also a couple things I don't want in an FMV adventure game, like mazes and action scenes that the controls aren't cut out for. But I can look past those. This game is S tier.
Yes, sir. Things are definitely looking up.
You know, I thought the ending was fake. That's a joke ending, I said, because I was playing on easy. So after finishing it, little 8-year-old Ian started over and spent the better part of a year trying to solve Monkey Island 2 the hard way. Most of that stuck in Part 2. And can I just say, I know Part 2 of LeChuck's Revenge is the gold standard for nonlinear puzzle design, but GZH Creasy does it throw off the pacing. And so after months and months of working this thing over, I finally got back to where I was, ready for the big reveal, and nope. Nope, that was the real ending. The whole time, Austin. And you know what? It's a big swing. I respect that. But I do feel like I'm the butt of this joke. My mistake for caring, I guess, about the last 10 months of my life. LeChuck's Revenge was the first game to break my heart. I'm putting it in B. In 1914, you, a fugitive from the law, sneak aboard the Orient Express without a ticket to meet your friend. You find him dead in his room. As a wanted man, you can't get caught with a body, so you put on his jacket, give his ticket to the conductor, and now people on the train think you're him. And it turns out he was into something that got him killed, and you'd better find out what if you want to solve his murder without ending up the same. A truly thrilling pastiche de Poirot, doubling as core sample of what culture and politics in Europe were on the eve of World War I. The briefcase handoff is white knuckle in ways that I didn't think a 90s point-and-click could be. Add in a time travel mechanic that not only keeps death a credible threat, not only minimizes frustration thereupon, but makes failure itself a puzzle mechanic? Mwah! I want to say they don't make them like this anymore, but they didn't make them like this then. Three characters from Maniac Mansion return to the eponymous domicile to stop the time-bending machinations of a mutated purple tentacle. Shenanigans ensue. Matter of taste? I just don't think it's that funny. On Looney Tunes, there's a joke every 15 seconds. Here, there's a joke every time the player does something that triggers a joke, which can take a while. Like if Bugs Bunny shrank a sweater by putting it in a dryer for 200 years, I would laugh, because I would have never thought of that. But here, ain't nothing happening until you think of that. And that impacts the timing a bit. There are some good gags and some clever puzzles. Laverne's voice actress is incredible. And they do get a lot of mileage out of one location existing in 3 time periods. It's not a bad game. I just don't enjoy it.
I really should go now. Call me sometime, okay?
Thank God you've returned.
Question for you. How many puzzles are there in Riven? There were dozens in Myst. I'd say there are in Riven 3. This one, and this one. There's a lot else that seem like puzzles at first. Like, what's this? How's this work? I don't know how to get over there. But Riven is a place. It has a language and a religion and a design all its own. And once you understand them, puzzles don't get solved. They just cease to be puzzles. World building, gameplay, and story are so finely braided as to be indistinguishable. This is the opposite of Machinarium and Still Life, where sometimes gameplay just stops to give you an unrelated puzzle. Interactive fiction wonks call it embedding, and Riven is damn near peerless at it. Other games have approached embedding at this level, and it has on occasion been equaled. But if you believe that the interweaving of world, puzzle, and plot that is Riven has been surpassed, you'd best be telling me where. Riven goes in S. A nerdy American tourist races the secret ancient order of the Knights Templar to the mystical MacGuffin that is the titular broken sword. And all you dingalings who say this is one of the best adventure games of all time, I just want to ask you, from your memory, don't look it up, what does the Broken Sword do? And what is the evil plan of the Templar Knights? And how does the Broken Sword factor into it? You know, the Ark of the Covenant, the Holy Grail, Atlantium Orichalcum, I can tell you what these things do and why the Nazis shouldn't have them. So I feel like I should have an answer to what is the Broken Sword of Baphomet and does it work? 'Cause, spoilers, you unalive a lot of people over it. By the way, this isn't about the goat. I'm not mad about the goat. I am mad about the ball and the buzzer and the frickin' chess game, but not the goat. But no game has ever insulted my intelligence as much as when the killer I spent 9 of this game's 10 hours chasing said we were always on the same side. As if they ever established what the sides are even trying to accomplish. The respect this game gets is unfathomable to me. D tier. I don't even give a fuck. Gabriel Knight goes to Germany and ends up investigating a werewolf, which is neat. But he also transitions into full motion video, which is... But it is kind of a camp classic. But is it more camp than Tim Curry doing a Nolans accent? But it's probably the best looking FMV game Sierra ever did. But it's undeniably uglier than this. But there is some choice bycoding in Gabriel's relationship to Baron von Glauer. But they're also setting up his no-homo relationship with Grace. But at least you get to play as Grace this time. But her gameplay is mostly just reading books. But that leads to another Jane Jensen info dump about Bavarian history and a long-lost Wagnerian opera. But then they perform the opera and you have to pretend that this sounds like a lost masterpiece by Richard Wagner. Sure. Goes in C.
Sorry, I didn't know you were busy.
Mach nicht, I'm always up for company. So, amuse me, Herr Knight.
Long ago, the world of science and the world of magic were cleft in twain, and this teenage girl has just discovered that she is the rare entity who can shift between them. And now, if the balance is to be maintained, she has to fulfill at least 4 prophecies. I'm gonna be honest, The Longest Journey is sometimes well-written, but it's mostly overwritten. It is sometimes well-designed, but often poorly designed, and by the end, they mostly give up on gameplay entirely and you just click through hours of dialogue. The world building is a textured and nuanced version of just about the most basic fantasy hook you can imagine. The funny characters aren't that funny, the villains aren't that scary, and the dramatic beats feel a bit stock. And yet, I've played it 3 times. And by the end, I always feel this swell of emotion, like I just finished a long, long journey with some people I really cared about. And really, what else even matters? A film noir about a travel agent getting snared in a web of corruption in the Mexican land of the dead. How's that for a pitch? A story spread across 4 years, and if we are being clinically dispassionate, we would admit that the 3rd year pretty much sucks. And the first half of year 4 isn't great either. And, you know, year 1, it is mostly just fine. So properly more than half of this game is mid at best. Why do adventure fans love it so much? Well, because year 2, the Casablanca section, is just about the pinnacle of adventure game story and design. LucasArts firing on all cylinders. And after the nadir of year 3, they clutch out a gorgeous finale. And when Manny gives his speech at the end, summing up in just a few sentences his philosophy of life and death, all his sins are forgiven. It gets better than this, but not by much.
Yeah, tourists.
Things I like about my FlexiSpot E7 Pro standing desk are as follows. I pace when I think, and being able to flow seamlessly between scripting and stomping around muttering to myself may not sound like a game changer. Believe me, it is. I have 3 pre-programmed heights: sitting, standing, and microphone height. I am a theater kid, and I hate to record sitting down. You are very lucky with a traditional desk to get your chair at just the right height that both your legs and arms are bent comfortably. Being able to adjust both chair and desk, I've got my limbs right where I want them. Speaking of the chair, a few years ago I herniated a disc in my back so badly I couldn't sit at a desk for a year. And the C7 Max supports not just the L but the S region of the spine, meaning it's the first ergonomic chair I haven't had to supplement with an additional back cushion. The seat is actually wide enough that I can sit at my desk cross-legged, and the armrests... they're great! Well tailored to a range of needs, frequently on sale, discounted with the promo code you see here, and a 10-year warranty on the chair, 15-year on the desk, and a 30-day return policy on both. The FlexiSpot E7 Pro and C7 Max chair both go in A tier with a sugar badge.